Welcome to How Women Inspire. Today's guest is Katie Taylor, who's the CEO and co-founder of Narratize AI, the generative AI storytelling platform for innovative enterprises. Can't wait to get into that a little bit more. Katie is a growth-focused entrepreneur and executive with 10 years of experience inspiring teams to design and deliver magnetic products, memorable experiences, and groundbreaking impacts. She has led strategic innovation narratives and served as a senior content strategist within fast growth tech startups and Fortune 500 companies like Boeing, NASA, Hershey, Sunoco, AAA, World Food Forum, and the United Nations. She believes that everyone can be an innovator when empowered to share their bold ideas. So that's exactly what we're about here. And I'm so excited that you're with us today. Thanks for coming, Katie.
Well, thanks for having me, Julie. I'm honored to be here. It's a great way to start off a productive week together here.
So what I haven't said yet to all the people who are listening is our venture firm, How Women Invest, invested in Narratize. So I have seen Katie's discipline and her capacity up front for the last 6 months, and it's quite impressive. Before we get into some of the more the deeper topics, and everybody wants to know about AI today, but let's quick talk about your favorite song to lift you up for those moments where you either want to celebrate or you need a little lift.
Definitely. I love that you start this way. So, if you've seen the Netflix movie Always Be My Maybe, there's a song on that album called Ready for This, and it's by Josh Mobley. And it just jazzes me up. I love this song. It's got a lot of mix to it. And when I was doing a pitch competition that ended up being a real turning point for Narratize last year, they asked me for, a stage song, an intro song, and I decided to play this. And now it's a good luck song at this point for the whole company.
Okay, so let's connect that to, has there been a challenging or a proud moment when you've wanted to break out with that song?
Yeah, I mean, so this song, it happened in about Q2 of 2023. We had just come out of stealth mode at Narratize. We were building very quietly for 2 years, and we came out of stealth mode and we were raising venture capital, and it was brutally difficult. At least it felt that way to me at the time. 0.3% of the venture capital that goes to AI companies goes to all female founded companies. So I knew when we were pitching and I was leading the fundraise, I knew we were an anomaly. I knew investors weren't used to seeing 3 women co-founders of an AI company. And when we went on stage for the HearstLab LA competition, I decided to enter that song. And it really, I would say that time was one of the highest highs and the lowest lows, because it was such a challenge to help investors see why we were going to be doing AI differently, why they should trust that 3 women can do this effectively. And later in the year, that statistic around 0.3% came out from the Turing Institute, which is a really incredible organization. And so we know it's data backed, those feelings that I was feeling in Q2, but I didn't really know it at the time. And I think too, ready for this question mark is the right question a lot of us are asking about AI. How ready are we for this? Are we ready to embrace it? What are our fears? It comes with so many emotions. And so that's why I chose that song.
Well, all over the place, and everyone's talking about this fear around AI. And well, if we aren't actually having a diverse group of people who are leading these companies, where you're literally the design of the companies themselves, as well as the source documents, are all problematic. So it's just nutty to me that in the entire space, there are so few female leaders. It's just breathtaking. It's something we all have to change. So when you think about the future of AI, what are your predictions about it? Really, how is it going to evolve, and how will organizations really realize the value from generative AI?
Last year, 2023, was considered the breakout year for generative AI. AI has played a critical role in business life and in everyday life for years now, but it was a little more hidden, a little more quiet and embedded in the background of our lives. And with the launch and the rise of ChatGPT and large language models evolving to the point that they did, that idea of AI as a personal assistant really took the world by storm last year. For businesses, it was still, I think a lot of last year was spent wondering, should this be a top-down imperative? How are we going to stay relevant? How are we going to adopt this technology effectively? Going into the next year, 2024 and beyond, it will no longer be a question about whether this will transform people's professional and personal lives. It absolutely will. And it won't be in the background as much anymore. It will be front and center. And the question every executive leader has to answer is, what's our plan for supporting our people in adopting this so that they're not left behind and that our entire enterprise isn't left behind? We need to maintain a speed to market, and what's the best path for our people? And everyone is answering it in different ways. But my prediction is the most seamless path forward and the most sustainable paths forward will be the ones that really grow in traction in 2024 and beyond. And so obviously we have a lot of stances on that as a company, but as a market in general, I think a lot of the challenges around addressing fears and promoting adoption and sparking transformation, those are the key market questions that I'm always listening for and listening for best practice. So happy to share what we're hearing and what we're, the way that how we're building is sort of designed around those stances.
So I've heard you talk about responsible, trustworthy, and inclusive generative AI. What is the future looking like? How are we evolving both this year and beyond when we think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the funding for diverse founders is one area that needs dramatic change. It just absolutely, that statistic has to change. I'm happy to be part of a 0.3%, and hopefully maybe our fundraise actually like change that statistic to something a little bit higher. But that absolutely needs to change. And I think the more that there's awareness of that abysmal reality, the more that that will push forward. I think another key area is enterprises will recognize that they can tackle their strategic imperatives around generative AI at the same time that they're tackling their imperatives around diversity, equity, and inclusion. These don't have to be separate initiatives and separate thoughts. If you're choosing vendors and solutions and you're integrating into your tech stack those AI solutions that actually are trained for bias, that take
Right.
that into account, you can speed up both of those things at the same time. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. And I think recognizing when you don't take care to incorporate that into your AI governance policy, you will inadvertently, perhaps, or intentionally not train for that. And you'll put your enterprise at risk of creating content and outcomes that are unfortunately continue to propagate
Right,
problematic
right,
ways of speech,
exactly.
and et cetera. Yeah.
Well, and to me, right now in this moment, when having the quotas that were outlawed at the Supreme Court, having that at the exact same time as we now have tools that could actually be used for good in reducing bias. One of the biggest issues is my networks look like me in the United States, right? People's networks are very similar in age, education, and ethnicity and race. And so actually using AI to find people in different networks and outside of your narrow network, to me feels like a great potential solution. But I also think for you in the world, let's talk about Narratize. Like, how is that different from other generative AI platforms, that the company that you're running right now?
Yeah, I'll answer that hopefully in a really crisp and clear way, and then we can circle back to responsible AI and how we approach it at Narratize and support our customers in doing so. But Narratize is the trusted generative AI co-author for innovative enterprises. We saw a huge usability and trust problem when it came to science, tech, and medical industries' ability to successfully adopt generative AI technologies. If an LLM outputs a hallucination, if it attributes the wrong quote or the wrong statistic to the wrong source, that's maybe not a big deal if you're writing a speech for a wedding, but it's a huge deal if patients' lives are at stake, or if it will inadvertently cause an engineer to program something in the wrong way or design something without industry backing and evidence to support it. And so at Narratize, we work with Fortune 1000 customers mostly in science, tech, and medical industries, those where there's the highest spend on research and development, the highest number of patents getting produced, and we transform how their people write by embedding generative AI into their workflows. And that looks like creating really complex deliverables inside the platform, like research reports, feasibility studies. We rolled out the world's first white paper builder with generative AI about a month ago. And so where someone else might say, oh, we couldn't possibly create that, we say, how can we do it? And we just bring this really fascinating team of people from data science, computer science, and narrative science all together to create this beautiful trifecta that we think is what really speaks well to large language models. And the responsible AI piece for us comes in where, let's give a quick definition first. So responsible AI is the practice of designing, developing, and deploying AI with good intention to empower people and fairly impact customers and societies. And that can allow companies to then engender trust and scale AI with confidence. So that's our working definition of responsible AI. It's the one that we communicate to our customers, and we listen for how they define it, and we come to consensus there. So when we're building, we are large language model agnostic, and we help our customers understand the value that you can extract from different large language models. And then as we build, we create a pretty robust data architecture. I would say that's probably the secret to Narratize's success, is we build our data architecture around sub-industry best practice and evidence bases, as well as topical areas. So for us, one of our first big guardrail projects from a data perspective was gender inclusive language, the use of discourse community training. So we're training Narratize to recognize, to your point, how do I speak differently when I'm with my people, when I'm with people who speak like me? And how do I translate that when I'm working to connect and build relationships with other people? That's so critical. It's so core to who we are as humans and who we are as storytellers as humans. And so that's been really key to how we build, is listening for bias, listening for discourse community, building into it where we can. And that's one of the first ways that we're approaching responsible AI. Another big piece is just the UX, the way that we designed this to pull from the human and keep their thoughts preserved. So I can dig more into that if we want to geek out even more on this topic.
I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm not asking for a seat at the table. My friends, this is the first generation of us. We have a huge opportunity. We have power and influence and wealth. And we can start building the tables where we get the prime seats. Today, we want to invite you to join us as investors in venture. I know no one's asked you to do it before. It might be something that seems scary or foreign, but I promise you it's not that different than investing in a mutual fund where your retirement funds are. I want you to lean in and just learn a little bit more. How about making the commitment that in the next 12 months, you can give yourself 12 months to figure it out and to take a step. I want to invite you to be part of the new table of power and influence and wealth. You're invited. I want to sit at the table with you because we're going to make big change. We're going to make the world we've been dreaming of. That would be wonderful. I mean, I feel like already, I think everybody on this that's listening to this has likely gotten an email or someone saying, hey, did this email come from you, Julie? And it's like, it sounds just like you. And you're like, this is insane. So yes, I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. So, I mean, at Narratize, we decided really early on we'd have 3 brand promises. It would be speed, accuracy, and magic. Accuracy would be the top of the pyramid because we're supporting aerospace to healthcare. So lives are at stake, and what the large language model outputs has to be accurate. Number one, first and foremost. Next, speed and magic. So magic is really about making AI as usable as possible so that it fully integrates into our lives as professionals. And the way that we designed Narratize, we really kept this human-led AI philosophy at the heart of everything. So if you've used a chatbot before, you know that you log in and you're met with a blank screen and a blinking cursor. And you need to do your work. You're there to do something, to get a job done, but now you have to go figure out what to prompt it and how to prompt it. And enterprises are spending millions of dollars empowering and training professionals and at least getting an introduction to how to do prompting within a large language model. And that's important. That's a great skill set to have. You're going to need it into the future. But at Narratize, we said, yes, that's beautiful, but how might we just make that work happen more seamlessly? And so we designed a reverse chatbot experience. We turned down the volume on what the AI generates, and we turned up the volume on what the user shares. And so that means that instead of being met with that blank screen and blinking cursor, they're met with a series of questions. What do you need to create? Great. what do you think about this? And it just dives deeper and deeper, kind of like sitting down in a fun interview like this, right? And my ideas are getting pulled out of my head because you're asking great questions here. And that's how Narratize feels. And so when you go to hit generate, it's co-authoring that piece. You're able to maintain copyright of it because the insights that you've shared are heart and soul of it. And really, Narratize is mapping it to the right narrative algorithm that's proven to be helpful in your context. Essentially, some of the biggest problems we solve are that scientists, engineers, and technologists are incredible thinkers, incredible innovators, not always the best communicators. Like we collect all these crazy stories of scientists and lab techs who have like discovered something amazing, but just couldn't articulate it. So it's sat on the shelf. For example, the gastroenterologist who discovered that H. pylori bacteria causes stomach ulcers could not convince the community that that finding was true. And so he digested the bacteria, got an ulcer, and then went on stage and told everybody about it. That's how that scientific discovery was put into the world. And that's so sad. That's
Yes.
not how it should be, right? But then you zoom out bigger and you see how challenging it is to share evidence about bigger scientific issues like climate change and to create public rhetoric and awareness in a way that actually drives people towards doing something different about their lives because of it. And so you see on these small scales how that could impact an individual scientist and therefore impact the health of our whole society. And that's really where we focused first. We asked, how can we better enable professionals within those industries to turn up the volume on their insights and share them and amplify them in ways that still maintain the technical accuracy, but that are actually clear and compelling.
Well, and you had me hooked one of the first times I met you, and you said, listen, it usually takes about 30 hours to write an article, a grant. I can't remember what the frame was, but with Narratize, you could do it in 30 minutes. And just thinking about the efficiency, if you are a scientist having to be a great writer, and not only write to convince people like the good example you just gave, but also just the cost of that when that isn't your main thing, and just the amount of time that it takes to perfect that kind of writing too, is extraordinary.
It's amazing the number of innovation ideas that just sit on the shelf because they weren't well told. And those teams took a lot of care and time to try to communicate it for internal buy-in or for external message market fit. And it just didn't say what it needed to say in the way they needed to say it to get the buy-in it needed to get to the next stage of the innovation or stage gate process. 30%, you're right. Innovators spend 30% of their work week writing and trying to pitch innovation updates and ideas. That's a significant amount of time, 12 hours a week. And so we really focused in on that first and said, how can we enable product, innovation, and research and development teams to move faster?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for all of us, that's the goal, right? To be more efficient and to maximize your value. So as a leader, you are doing all of this, but you also do work differently. You have a partnership with UN World Food Program, for example. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so let's see. In 2023, we started a partnership. It's called the United Nations and World Food Forum. They run global innovation challenges. They're literally trying to get research dollars in the hands of the people trying to solve world hunger. So we thought there's no better
Yeah, kind of
partnership
good
here.
thing to do. Yes.
Yeah,
Makes
kind of
it at night.
beautiful mission alignment there. Obviously, they're just fueling innovation all around the world. And they have hundreds of applications come in every year for research funds. And so this was at a time where we were just launching Narratize. So we said, let's gather some data around accuracy and speed and magic and see if users are actually getting this amazing value out of the platform. So we integrated Narratize into their application process and we gave everyone an option to use it. Well, it turned out those who use it rated it as 73% more accurate than ChatGPT,
All right.
and 83% of the research fund winners use Narratize to write their pitch.
Oh, you're
So
kidding.
it was
Oh
really
my,
fun to
I
see in
didn't know
October.
this.
Yeah, yeah. And so a few months ago, they had their flagship week in Rome and they announced this partnership. They shared the outcomes. They awarded all of these research dollars. And now we're just deepening that partnership. This year, the full application process will run through Narratize. It won't really be an option. They'll just all have the power to help create their pitch within the platform.
I love that you're doing it and really helping in something so essential. If you can't get your story across, but it's the best solution to solve for hunger, that's how heartbreaking that becomes the barrier. So it's beautiful that this is the bridge. Katie, we've talked about so many interesting things. When you think about the audience of who's listening to this, what is the main message you want them to know? Is it about women in AI or narrative science or Narratize? What do you want them to take away from this, and what actions can they take to solve for some of the things we talked about today?
I'm building an AI company here, so the world's biggest fan, but I've been doing this for a decade in terms of like trying to help enterprises at the largest scale speed up their adoption in the marketplace for new innovations through the power of storytelling. And I think the problem of the slowdown of the innovation speed within an enterprise when it comes to being able to communicate, collaborate, and get the right information to the right team member to make the right decision, that is something that has just fascinated me for a decade. I truly came right out of my PhD in narrative science at Purdue and started focusing on that problem of how do you help innovation and research and development teams more effectively communicate and storytell. And we started publishing on this. So I just think AI is such an exciting enabler of the scale up of innovation storytelling in its most effective ways. But the problem persists and the solutions will continue to evolve. That's what I would say. If you remember one thing about Narratize, it's designed to support your speed to market for the most innovative ideas in your company. And it's meant to do that through the power of story.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Katie Trauth Taylor. Follow Narratize, please. I'm so excited to share the amazing new features and use cases coming. We're rolling out a story infuser and a research hub inside the platform this quarter and tackling all kinds of new use cases like a suite of innovation stories that you can build, everything from like crafting your failure narrative and your lessons learned from a failed project to working to communicate a persistent story, an origin story. We're building more use cases around, let's see, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, like case studies are coming out this month. And we're just really hyper focusing on those deliverables that take teams the most time that no other team has executed on yet in this space. So running fast, and it's just really wildly fun to be at the forefront of playing with these LLMs.
Well, this to me, this is everybody listening has got to be leaning in so hard and wanting to figure out how they can leverage and utilize a tool like this for their own storytelling to really get whatever your goals are, but specifically enterprise growth goals. This is fantastic. Thank you so much, Katie. You are a wonderful storyteller. It's been really fun to have you here at How Women Inspire today.
Thanks for having me.